for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councillor Peterson.
Here.
Councillor Geisler.
Here.
Councillor Hochschild.
Here.
Councillor Nelson.
Here.
Mayor Boucher.
Here. We've decided to procedurally move number 4 announcements to the end of the meeting to allow a quicker facilitation of the meeting. We have no public hearings tonight. Mr. Mulder, correspondence.
You just have 2 items on there. The first is the wastewater treatment year-end adjustments. We had talked about that previously last year when we saw the correspondence from WLSD regarding the 2022 charges. So I just wanted to, as a follow-up, include that for your information. And then the second one is just a list for your information of some of the discussions that we've had with St. Louis County for road projects from 2022 to 2025. And on that list, we included some of those projects that are just outside the city limits that may impact us as well.
Thank you. Presentations. Did we have something for Mr. Johnson tonight?
No, we do not.
Okay. No department head presentations. This is a time for public discussion. Any member of the public can talk to us about any item, and we ask that it not be the ones on the agenda. There will be time for discussion of those items when they're presented. If anyone has anything they'd like to discuss, we now have public discussion for any item not on the agenda. If anyone wishes to discuss anything, please state your name and address for the record. Discuss anything with the council that is not on the agenda. Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Councillor Hochschild, second by Councillor Geisler. Roll call, please.
Councillor Geisler.
Aye.
Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Under ordinances, ordinance 2022-02, an ordinance of the city of Hermantown, Minnesota, amending the city code section 210 council to increase the salaries of the mayor and council members. This is the first reading, but we do have an amendment to this, Mr. Mulder.
Per our discussion at the pre-agenda meeting, we would like to see the council make a recommendation that says, or a motion, excuse me, that says that the monthly compensation would not change, but the reimbursement for phone and internet would be changed to, and I thought you had said it was $75. So you should make that motion.
Is that made now or at the second reading, Ms.?
I thought we talked about it doing it now, so that then therefore when the second reading, that way you've set the intent of here's the first reading and now we're going to have a second reading in 2 weeks.
Okay. So does someone have a motion?
I'll motion that we do not change the monthly compensation for counselors, but that we increase the technology reimbursement to $75.
I'll second.
That 2 year.
Well, let's see. We have a motion by Councillor Hochschild. Who got the second?
Give it to Gloria.
Councillor
Nelson.
Do we need a roll call or a voice vote on this, Mr.
Yeah,
we better have a roll call.
Yeah.
typically this council uses roll call. So
Let's do a roll call.
Let's make it official.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Geisler.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-29. Resolution approving request for proposals for consulting engineer for the preparation of a water distribution evaluation and modeling report. Do we have a motion?
a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Councillor Geisler, second by Councillor Peterson. Mr. Mulder.
So this, I suppose I could let David Wolf talk to this. But basically, what we're looking for is an engineer to take a look at our system in terms of, where we might see growth and additional pressures on it, and what a new model might look like going forward.
Yeah, so kind of just recapping what we said at the pre-agenda. What we're doing here is it's been over 20 years since we've modeled the existing water main system. So thought it would be a good idea to get a new baseline and project any improvements that we need to make on the system, like upgrading pumps, extending water mains, or increasing our capacity in a water tower. So, and we're looking to hire a consultant to do that for us.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, is there any public input on resolution 2022-29? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public input on the resolution approving a request for proposals for a consulting engineer for evaluation of the water system and modeling? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Nelson.
Aye.
Counselor Hochschild.
Aye.
Counselor Peterson.
Aye.
Counselor Geisler.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-30, resolution approving an amendment to the city handbook regarding a sewer availability policy. Do we have a motion?
Motion to table?
Second.
Motion by Counselor Geisler to table, second by Counselor Nelson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This motion will be revisited at our next scheduled meeting. Resolution 2022-31, resolution approving request for proposals for construction manager at risk for the Hermantown Recreation Initiative arena. Should say arena on there.
I will motion to approve based on the changes that were noted and will be made to the RFP, in which Mr. Mulder will also send an updated RFP to the council for final review, just to keep us on timeline.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Counselor Peterson, second by Counselor Hochschild. Mr. Mulder.
So this, again, is an RFP for the arena project, and we've added a number of items to kind of do a better description of phase one and what our expectations are. We just made a couple of other changes relative to phase two in terms of when we're getting to see cost proposals and the referencing the exhibit of the floor plan.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from council?
I just would like to thank John and Gunnar and Steve for putting their efforts into this. It's not easy, and I know we're trying to get it moving quickly. And John, I asked that we start thinking about that selection committee and getting that going as soon as we can, and getting some people identified for that. So,
any other?
I would just say, I'm glad that we move forward with the RFP process. I think this will make it transparent in the decision that the city makes moving forward with a major project like this, especially with state dollars involved potentially. So I'm just glad that we'll have a citizen committee looking into this and selecting the best developer.
Thank you. Anything else? I want to point out that this is only one portion of the recreational initiative, that an administration discussion has taken place on the design and implementation of the trails portion, and that could probably be handled in-house, but that the design and construction of the ball field would be handled in a separate manner at another time. Mr. Mulder?
And let me be perfectly clear. Each one of those areas are important to the community. For the purposes of this process, the arena is the area where the city needs additional tools outside of the existing city staff. If it was just those other two projects, we can handle that with city staff. But with the arena, we do need some additional help on that. It's not to say that it's more important. It's just that it requires tools and a skill set that we don't have on city staff.
Thank you.
If I may add as well, that the community engagement process and communication for fact education points of all three of these projects will still be a part of the overall process. I think we have to define some pieces of that, but it is the intention of the city that there will be a very open communication, education opportunity, stakeholder engagement, community process, so that the community is understanding the intent of each one of these initiatives. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll add if I can, John had talked about the putting in the RFP, the added community meetings and whatnot. That certainly is going to be focused with that construction manager to the arena, but that probably needs to be a broader meeting of, okay, contractor, construction manager XYZ is going to talk about the arena, but
those other pieces will be a part.
Joe and Eric are going to talk about the other things.
Right.
And that,
yeah.
I mean, so when we have those community meetings, it needs to be for the project and not the arena.
Right. 100%.
Very, very good point.
Any other comments from council? Is there any public discussion or comment on this resolution? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public input or comment on resolution 2022-31? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Peterson?
Aye.
Counselor Geisler?
Aye.
Counselor Nelson?
Aye.
Counselor Hochschild?
Aye.
Mayor Boucher?
Aye. Resolution 2022-32, a resolution approving preliminary and final plat of Crystal Estates and imposing conditions on the final plat.
Now would be a good time for Eric to, oh, sorry, you need a motion.
I need a motion. Sorry. We were going to go that direction.
I'll motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Geisler, second by Counselors Hochschild and Peterson. Mr. Johnson, could you fill us in on this?
Yes, thank you very much, Council and Mayor Boucher. This project is for the subdivision of a 4.1 acre property into 6 individual lots. If you recall, this property had come before council last year in March of 2021 by Stephen Caskey of A-Line Properties for the construction of 3 twin homes. 2 of these homes have now since been built. They front on Hermantown Road. There'll be a 3rd one that'll be constructed later on this spring/summer off of Levake. So now the applicant, the property owner, is gearing up to sell these particular units, and thus is creating the plat to be able to subdivide that land. So the advantage of doing the plat after these buildings have been built is we know exactly where these interior walls are to be able to create the subdivision of the land accurately.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from council?
What's the sewer availability charge?
What we did, and Mr. Bolfer and Mr. Mulder can chime in with this too, but the original property owner had paid for 1 additional hookup at the time of construction, and any additional ones were at that point approximately $19,800. What staff did on the 2nd unit on Hermantown Road is we divided that by 2. So plus or minus $10,000 for those 2 units. For that unit on Levake Road, the applicant is going to be constructing a sanitary sewer and water line extension at his cost. And at the end of that, he will not have any additional, other than our standard hookup fees, additional assessments, availability charges, et cetera, because he will be constructing that line for those 2 particular units and dedicated over to the city.
If sewer continues down Levake Road, they'll just hook onto that, what's already for that line that they're putting in, correct?
Yes, that could happen at a future date. That's correct.
It will go to the property line, correct?
It'll go to the property line, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mulder.
Just to be clear about this, is that availability charge for that second building being split in two is consistent with the way we handled project 442 on Levake for the Kilgore properties. So we're being consistent there. And then there's no availability charge when he's building the main.
Same thing, Kukless bought that property off of Levake, and he put in a little chunk of sewer main right there.
He put in the main and turned it over to us. Right. So there was no availability charge to it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Is there any public input on resolution 2022-32? If so, please state your name and address. Is there any public input on the resolution approving the preliminary and final plat of Crystal Estates? Roll call, please.
Councillor Geisler.
Aye.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Resolution 2022-33, resolution reestablishing precincts and polling places in the city of Hermantown. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Councillor Peterson, second by Councillor Nelson. Mr. Mulder.
So we're required to reestablish these precincts now that the redistricting process is over. So we won't be changing any of the precincts or the polling places.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, is there any public input on this resolution? If so, please state your name and address for the record. Is there any public input on resolution 2022-33? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councillor Nelson.
Aye.
Councillor Hochschild.
Aye.
Councillor Peterson.
Aye.
Councillor Geisler.
Aye.
And Mayor Boucher.
Aye. Next, we have a motion to recess.
No, you're going to back to announcements.
Oh, that's right. Announcements. Councilors have announcements?
I would like to congratulate our Hermantown Hawks boys hockey team on a very successful season and a good representation again of our community, and wish them luck down at the state hockey tournament. I know they have their send-off tomorrow. It's always an exciting time, and it's always fun to see the community show up down there to support the team. So congratulations to them.
I have some other business. One was the cul-de-sac issue that we talked about before. We talked about it a bit last meeting, and then Gunnar had followed up with some correspondence to us in the form of an email. I think it was on February 22nd. And I guess I was just wondering if we should, Gunnar, I think we should make those changes, or what are your thoughts there? Looking towards the council maybe for direction?
Well, just first of all, I assume councilors don't know what you're talking about because I only sent the email to you and me.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm like, I don't think
I just saw, okay, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
And I think the staff is doing the process of looking back into the records to see if the typo that is in, and I don't remember which one off, but it's the 500-foot one, whether that was a transcription error that we can fix administratively, or if it's something that should be fixed through the legislative process. And I don't think the staff has finished that review.
Okay.
Yet. But then, you know, it's a question of if the council or the staff feels that that's an appropriate cleanup, we can certainly put together an ordinance and do it. Otherwise, you know, it's been 14 years that typo has been in there, and I'm sure the city will go on if it's in there for another 10. So it's really how you guys want to handle that.
Gunnar, can you explain what are you talking about? What's the ordinance?
I'd ask Councilor Geisler.
Okay.
I don't have the memo in front of me.
Right in front of me here. So this all came up of the Zerden development with the dead end street
Yep.
situation. The developer had asked for some information, which I provided, and there's a typo that
A grammatical error.
it is, but it's kind of confusing about. So it says this is 1020.30.10. Dead end streets are prohibited except as stubs to permit future street extensions of when designed as cul-de-sacs. So that of maybe should have been as or something. I mean,
Or
that's
just dropped.
yeah.
Just drop the word
Stubs
of
to
in there.
permit future street extensions when designed as cul-de-sac. So that's what the developer is saying. Well, yeah, I can put in a cul-de-sac because there's a right of way there that somebody can connect to in the future. But then if you go, the next section says permanent cul-de-sacs shall not exceed length of 500 feet.
And
Above that, it says dead end streets are prohibited except as stubs to permit. So that's the confusion.
Okay.
I see that now. And I think the intent of the council was permit future street extensions when designed as cul-de-sacs, and left the exceptions up to a case-by-case basis on how those were dealt with. And we've seen over the years that those have been dealt with by making other lots available for road outlets when a straight extension wasn't possible. We could clean this up by dropping the word of, or we could clean it up by being more specific on how things are handled.
I think if we clean it up, that would be what I think, because it says it's not permitted, but above it says
Right.
are not permitted except if permitted for
Future street expansions.
Right.
But the definition of a future street expansion means that it can't be done at the current time. This one can be done at the current time.
If it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, when there's wetlands in the way, when there's property ownership issues in the way, that means future. But we may want to clarify ordinance to say that. Or we may want to change policy. Do we want to permit these things? We want to have cul-de-sacs every time somebody puts something in and not worry about the future.
Right. I understand the extent of the expectation of this, but it is
And I think
a little bit confusing.
I think staff recommendations on what type of changes would be necessary to continue current policy, and then let the body decide if we want to change current policy.
I'm good with that.
You know, if you can recommend with staff's input what type of language changes would continue current policy to clean this up so that it does what it was intended to do, then that can come to us and we can decide if we want to change current policy.
That seems very reasonable. And I can,
yeah,
and John and Jackie, and
I think that's
put something together for the council to consider.
I think that's good.
Great.
My other two things.
Natalie has something.
Well, on that, I mean, I think Jay has sent an email, I believe, to all of us.
Yeah.
We know we've heard from the community and the neighbors on this. And I feel like there's a discussion to be had on this based on that language, the confusion. The developer doesn't want to extend it. The neighbors don't want to extend it. I understand the points. I think he's willing to do a trail outlet on this one, and I'm open to discussing that decision.
Well, that involves changing policy from where we are now. And that's something we can discuss when the language comes to us. We have an obligation as a body to set policy. We can change that anytime we want, but let's clean up what was intended and have that in front of us when we make that decision. Because this makes it a little confusing. we know what it's supposed to mean. Are we going to change what it's supposed to mean? That's a discussion we can have at a later time.
Going forward?
Are we going to change our policy? Are we going to allow cul-de-sacs everywhere?
Well, I'm just saying we made a decision that we thought at the time that we supported. We've heard from the community, we've heard from the developer, we go back to the language, which is questionable.
It's another knock against it, for sure.
I have a hard time standing up. What we decide from a policy standpoint going forward, fine. I agree with cleaning that language up and supporting that. But I'm having a hard time not understanding the points made and have heard from the community, from the developer, and regarding to the situation that I'm questioning our decision on this.
We know what the intent of policy is, though.
Wayne, the language is confusing.
Maybe the
yeah, it is.
Well,
and it was to the developer as well.
It is confusing.
To the developer, and it was to the community members as well.
Then we go on with staff's interpretation of that language for the past how many years that set precedents, that's designed everything we've done. And we can change that.
And we've got precedent of where we have allowed these. So my request.
No, we don't.
We do. We've got cul-de-sacs in different neighborhoods.
Yes, we do. Where they weren't feasible. You're taking a short-term decision and projecting it for a long-term issue. They're two separate things. The ultimate planning for the future of the community and the pleasing of people right now.
So that we have a throughway for that short extension in that neighborhood. I will tell you that I want this to be a discussion item. I'm very much in support of the concerns and the frustrations that have come forward on this. And I feel like it has merit for the discussion.
I don't know if anybody has seen, there are some recent Facebook posts from that St. Johnson Road resident about the fire hydrants. It started with the fire hydrants, but it ended with this development.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't follow that page, but
he wouldn't be happy if the spaghetti wasn't.
Well, we don't need to make comments like that. I mean, he stands behind his position and he feels that it's valid and it matters to him. And I'm listening, and I feel like based on several points, I want it to be a discussion of how we look at that. And I think everyone should have the voice on that.
And just on a logistical standpoint, because I'm hearing what Natalie's saying, but technically we are still in the process of, isn't there like
the final plat hasn't been approved.
Right. So there is going to be some formal additional.
It hasn't even been submitted.
No, there's been some meetings and some.
So I guess my question with that is there already in the books a time when we will be discussing again anyway?
Well, we probably better decide what our policy is going to be before we discuss that going forward.
Sure. You know, but nonetheless, for this specific project, there is a public us discussing about this again.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all.
If he presents
the final plat.
The final plat.
Right.
But it also behooves us to decide what our policy is going to be going forward. Are we going to allow cul-de-sacs everywhere someone wants them? Are we going to do what's right for the future? Are we going to do what people want right now?
Yeah, I believe me, I understand your position, but
that's a policy decision that we can make ahead of the final approval on this plat, so that it guides us when it comes to us.
But when we made the initial plat decision, it was based off of the assumption that the policy was clear, and it's not.
Well,
exactly.
So it changes the situation.
It was also based on staff recommendations, planning and zoning recommendations.
Right.
So it's more than just that.
But that's a piece of it. I agree with you, Greg.
Yeah, I actually agree with both.
Yep.
I have two other quick things. I sent Joe and John a report put out by the Associated General Contractors that stated the inflation of construction went up 20% in 2021. And I just thought that was a good educational piece that we could include in talking with the legislators and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I think, John, you and Joe should have that and have that tucked under your arm this week. And then lastly, I questioned John here a little bit, and I think it needs our discussion. So we've had a couple of jobs posted. The right-of-way / infrastructure manager was posted at 82,000 starting salary, which I think is seems about right and reasonable. I was surprised when I saw the building official posting that's starting salary 71,000. My opinion is the building official is a licensed, you know, he needs to be a licensed building official. It seems odd to me that that is that much discrepancy in starting salary. It's a similar professional type. And again, the right-of-way manager doesn't have to be an engineer, but the building official doesn't have to be an engineer either, but he needs to be a state certified building official. And John, maybe you can just remind everybody how we came up with that.
Yeah, so I want to say it was in 2013. We had we hired. I think it was called Springstead at the time. They're now Baker Tilly. We had them do a compensation plan, and in that process, they look at each position. They look at the duties and responsibilities, a number of factors, and they assign points. And the points for the building official were lower than the points for the department heads. We pegged the utility manager at a department head level.
So the building official is not a department head? Not
in terms of the weight that their duties and responsibilities per that article, per that process.
It just doesn't sit right to me.
So what process, is there another process to change it?
Well, and we haven't looked at that since 13.
Yeah. 2013.
Yeah.
So
9 years old.
Job.
What's that?
Same job. Points are the same.
Well, the points, I mean, I don't, the infrastructure manager, I mean, we didn't even have that job classification.
Right. And we eyeballed that one.
Yeah.
I think that's worth looking at.
That
I agree.
That 82 feels about right to me. However, John, you had said that maybe we didn't get the right candidates, and I reached out to a few people who I know that said, I can't, that's
not the right pay.
What I'm making. Right.
And my opinion on the building official is they're very much a forward-facing staffer for the city, and that's also an important component to it.
Yep.
So I don't know what we do to think
what
about
process
that.
can we go through to get?
Jim Rich might stay.
My concern is Jim Rich is going to leave, whether we have a position or not.
Right.
Well,
if we want to reevaluate the position, we will be vacant without a building official for some time.
Can we do something?
Or you're just going to make it up and just re-advertise it at a rate outside the classification.
I think it's okay to keep it and see what we get for candidates, but if somebody comes in and says, you know, I think I'm better qualified and I think I should make a little bit more, maybe we should be willing to.
Well, or instead of a full process, are we able to look at other communities and what, I mean, do we do that? Do we see what other communities have there for that position? Is that a reasonable thought? Or
we could do that comparison. And again, we did that for all of the positions as part of the compensation study to make sure that our internal, the idea of the points is that internally there's that equity in terms of duties and responsibilities. Then you do the external to see what does the market bear for those kinds of points. And you go and you look at the comparables to say, we have this position at this rate, you know, do you have a similar position? And that we determine that market. So we determine the market for those various point levels. So the easy way is to, we can go and ask what other cities are paying building officials. But that's not going to tell you how that relatively speaks to the internal issues.
No, but I mean, Jim, the building official is reviewing plans of an area. I mean, that building is very complicated. He needs to understand that the exiting is there, the building codes are followed. I mean, a house is easy enough, but I mean, those are critical life safety type issues that he's making those decisions.
Yep.
He's inspecting things, you know, that to me that's more important than a right-of-way manager.
And he's also our fire inspector.
And we are the maintenance of the city buildings.
Well, and to your point, John, I mean, you're saying that if we go through a little bit of a process to evaluate it, it's pushing us back, but we're clearly not getting candidates at where it's listed at either. So,
well, we don't know that. I don't know if we got candidates or not, but I mean,
I thought we didn't.
We've had it out for maybe a week. We've had 3.
Yeah.
Where are you posting it?
We posted, it was in the Duluth News Tribune. It was in the League of Minnesota Cities. It was given out at the Professional Development Association that Jim is part of. He was at a meeting a week or so ago on Friday. We were also in the League of Minnesota Cities and Indeed.
And I saw it in the newspaper. That's where I saw it.
That's a wide range.
So I just think it's worthy of, it also makes me think, well, yeah, if that compensation study's 9 years old, maybe we need to do that again.
Especially given recent paper.
Well, yeah, the issue of recruitment, retention, wage inflation, all of those things has been thrown way out of whack in the last 2 years.
Right.
For everyone and everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. Across the economy.
I think John brings up a valid point, though, that is worth thought at least.
Yeah, it's the old,
and a discussion,
it's
maybe
the old
internally.
smell test. It just does not seem, doesn't smell right to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think again, looking at Cloquet, Virginia, Hibbing, others.
Well, and just how attractive are we compared to
Right.
those locations and a recruitment standpoint, you know?
And no, I don't want to prolong it. I just want to make sure we can get the candidates and
Get her done.
It's an important piece for us.
Yeah.
Huge.
well, and not just this position, as we say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the overall compensation study is important.
Yeah.
All right.
That's all I had for announcements.
Is it my turn or Natalie? Or did you have any more?
She already
We
announced the
covered,
hockey
we
team.
covered.
No, I
Did
have nothing to add to this tonight.
Okay, so St. Louis County Days, Natalie, Wayne, and I, right? And then Joe and Mulder, are you going to be there?
I wasn't sure what time I was going to get there. I'm not scheduled on any teams, but
okay. So I've heard from box office that he has talked to the tax committee chair about trying to change the language regarding referendums. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's like I asked somebody something, or if it's like I'm literally working on this. But I think that should be one of our key questions for Bach and others, frankly, is like, hey, how legitimate is it for us to do this? Is it possible? I have talked to a lobbyist just on my own, a friend, and his indication was that yes, it is logistically something that Bach could do if he wanted, if it got approval. So it is possible. It's just how much are they willing to do it? So I do think that should be one of our questions. The third is I sent that email you probably saw from Joe that LGA is on the table, like kind of out of nowhere, $218,000 a year for Hermantown, one of 19 communities that would be included.
That's huge.
Huge. I mean, I wasn't, and it's not even something we kind of were fighting for, and then we kind of gave up, and now it's back on the table, or you guys did before I was here. So I think that should be our third ask is like, hey, if you're doing LGA, make sure Hermantown is one of the 19 that get the money. And from my understanding, I think my email said that Box and Listagard's legislation did include Hermantown. I did some further digging. I think technically it doesn't, but there's a bill being introduced by Representative Joachim, I don't know, chair of the tax division, that is the one that would include Hermantown.
And I'm sorry, whose wasn't?
Listagard in the House and Bach, our senator in the Senate, both have LGA bills to increase the funding.
Yeah.
From my understanding, and I I would maybe need a little bit more homework, but according to the council, our group that we're a part of, theirs is just an increase in the appropriations, not the formula. So it wouldn't give any money to Hermantown. So our question to Bach is, you're increasing LGA, but you're leaving out your biggest community. So in your district. So can you get on board with this formula change that Yoakum is introducing? And then Listagard too, as our neighbor. Listagard's our next door district. So I think both could be convinced.
And on our meetings, I was concerned about the three of us being in the same group for open meeting law violation. There should probably only be two of us in.
Talk to somebody about.
He did. And it's being changed.
Getting rearranged. So.
Yeah, I think so.
But we'll deal with that when we show up and go to sit down.
So then just logistically, the communication from the chamber has been slightly lackluster. I mean, I get they're dealing with some difficulties, but I just we don't know who we're meeting with.
I know.
And so I don't know if we just need to schedule our own meetings, or where or when. So,
and I think we have some identified ones that we really
need to meet with, right?
That's value,
right?
To meet with.
So I'm proposing that I might reach out to Listagard and Box at minimum, and then Mary, I guess. I did talk to Mary today. She seemed pretty in the dark about everything we're doing, which is not surprising. And I don't mean that. I'm just saying, we haven't been in touch with her as much. I walked her through both requests, the question and the bonding. I asked her what she needed from us on bonding, and she seemed to, her indication was if Bach is moving it, that she's comfortable with that. On the question, she said she would check with House staff on the referendum question.
I do believe though, John, you reached out to Mary.
I talked to Mary mid-January, and then within the last week or so, we reached out to her via email.
Right.
Joe reached out with her via email.
I don't feel like she's in the dark, but
I think she's just feeling, I don't know, maybe the Bach meeting rubbed her the wrong way. I'm not really sure, but regardless, we just need to do some work there and figure out how to get the right stuff in front of her. And I think it's the bonding language and the question specifics. So we just need to have that for Wednesday, and I'll just work on having that. But I think the conversation with her this morning that I had with her was good. It was a good, we moved in the right direction. So, and then separately from legislative, I'm wondering about an update on Story North and where those videos are. I don't know if Joe is here, but I'd like to, hear that at some point. So
chamber, I think all of us are kind of
right.
We're going to show up at 10 o'clock and
we
don't know what we're doing, who we're meeting with. It is, I think there's a lot of questions. I think when we've gone on there in the past, we've kind of coordinated our own meetings, which has been really nice to just, and then do we have information or a packet or something that we want when we're meeting with particular individuals, make sure that we're, besides the booklet, which already exists, is there something else that?
Well, we can try to pull something together. Is you want to talk about getting them to support Bach's proposed bill, $4 million. I don't even know if that has a number yet. That just came out within the last 10 days. So you want to talk to as many people about that as you can. I don't know what Bach's talked about in terms of the referendum question, because to me, that's a much harder nut to crack in terms of how that's going to get worded. And certainly the LGA is to the extent that there's bills out there, is you just say, we want to be part of LGA. We were cut before, we need to be back in that.
So I guess
my understanding is that I have not been in direct contact with the chamber, but they're not able to get meetings up with the House members. The House is remote yet. I'm not even sure that Mary's in St. Paul.
I think she is, and she said she would be at the dinner.
Okay. She'll be at the
or
reception.
the breakfast. I don't know, one or two or both. But I think that is the issue, is the virtual.
Well, I've heard that some of the host members will meet, but they're meeting in larger conference rooms or whatever, not necessarily in their offices.
Okay.
That's what I'm totally certain on that. I mean, we've listed the mask mandate and some of these things, so I'm not understanding why we can't do in person. And I think as an elected official, you should. But would it be possible, John, for our group to, or for you and Joe or whatever, to maybe develop some like talking points, maybe that we could, like, just to make sure that we're hitting on certain pieces in our conversations, just to make sure we're not forgetting or something, you know.
Right.
Would that be helpful? I don't know if anybody else feels. We just want to make sure we've got some.
Yeah, and I can work with Joe on some of that. Okay.
I just wanted to update you guys a little bit on the ballot questions.
Yeah.
Because I know that's something that's on your mind. You know, so we talked about this a while back. We had 2 different ballot formats that we were talking about, and the council expressed a desire to have the 1 question with 3 parts. And we have gone, it's a new law. So for a lawyer, I looked at precedent. There is no precedent. So then we have gone to every county, state, League of Minnesota Cities, knocked on every door and tried to get a sense of how far we can go with this question. And after doing a lot of legwork, my sense was that we have to have, under the current law, we have to have 3 separate questions. It's not worth the risk, even if we have a 96% chance of getting through with 3 different questions. We don't want to blow a big project like this on, you know, we have to do it right. So we kind of recalibrated and have tried to think about these questions a different way, looked at rules and tried to maximize our question writing ability, and have come up with a draft of 3 separate questions that they may not be as great as 1 question with 3 parts, but it's not terrible. It's not really that bad.
Not confusing.
So situation there. John's read them. He might have an opinion on that.
Can we see the draft?
Yeah, I'd
When
like to
will
see
we
it.
see it?
That's fine. We can send where we're at, but so that's the work we've been doing on those questions. And,
I just think that there causes so much confusion with this.
no, it's a fascinating challenge to write those questions.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of them over the years. This one is really interesting, but I went back, looked at the rules, looked at the titles. We'll get you the copy of where we sit today. And I think you'll feel a little bit more comfortable. Again, I might be speaking out of turn with John,
but can I, so just our intention is to try to get it to 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%, that's our intention. The second, if not, then we get to see the draft of the questions and give response or feedback on that. But what is was it June that we had to have this language finalized?
Yeah, there's lots of time.
I couldn't remember.
So the legislative session ends in May, hypothetically.
Yep.
In a perfect world, we would get legislation passed to either what's the word? Not have Hermantown follow that law, or literally change the law. Yeah, one of the 2. And from my understanding, both are possible. That's what I've heard.
Well, hopefully we'll learn some pieces when we're down this week. Did you say you are going to be down there?
I'm going to be down there in the
just
evening.
for the reception.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You sent this to me, Gunner, when I was wondering if I had COVID. So.
Gunner, any chance that you, through your research and all the people you talked to, that you talked to Edina or any of the other communities?
I specifically talked to Edina. Edina specifically told me it's 3 questions.
Right. I'm just curious what they're doing or what they're saying.
They did end up getting back to you?
Yes.
Before we leave, I had a couple of things to add on to Natalie's initial announcements. Congratulating the girls in our co-op team of coming in second in state, and also the boys Pee Wee AA team will be going to state in a week, and the girls 15U team will be going in a week. So we've got a lot of good winter sports activity going on. The both boys and girls basketball seasons wrapped up last weekend. Let's celebrate everything we've got going now and look forward to spring athletics coming up. And just in time for our interview in 3 minutes.
3 minutes to spare.
Anybody have anything else before we ask for a motion to recess?
Is the people that are going to St. Louis County Days, you guys are just going to be there in the morning on Wednesday, 10 o'clock? Is that kind of
Yeah.
You need to get that first? Okay.
I am also there for the airport as well. So I'm probably going to have to cut out
Sure.
some point to go get my booth ready and stuff.
When is the booth?
4:30.
The reception's at 4:30.
But you
the
can
booth
start-
is during the reception?
Yes.
That's what that is?
Yeah, but you can set up ahead of time. And Joe's doing all of that probably for us.
And Joe had sent us some things today.
Yes, that's what he's
Handouts.
handed out.
Okay.
Motion to recess.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Housechild, second by Counselor Geisler. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.